Welcome back. Now, before jumping right into Sass code, let's first take a look at what Sass actually is. So this lecture is designed to give you a very quick overview of what Sass is, how it works, and what features it includes. So, putting it in very simple terms, Sass is a CSS preprocessor, an extension of CSS that adds a lot of power and elegance to the basic language. So basically, we use Sass to fix the problems that we have with CSS. CSS gets very messy very quickly, and for huge projects, having a single CSS file with thousands of lines of code without any reusable pieces, without any logic, gets completely unmanageable after some time. And that's why we use Sass, which provides us with a couple of handy features and tools that CSS simply doesn't have, while at the same time not changing the fundamental way that CSS works. This in particular makes Sass very easy to learn, and so I'm sure that you'll be up to speed with Sass in no time. And the way Sass works is like this. Instead of writing a CSS file with regular CSS code, we write Sass code in Sass files. Then we run a compiler, and that compiler converts the Sass code we wrote into regular CSS code, as if all we ever did was writing regular CSS in the first place. So we need to process our Sass code first, and that's why it's called a CSS preprocessor. So our website has no idea that the code we wrote in the beginning was in Sass, because it only ever sees the final output of the compiler, in the form of CSS, of course. Okay? Does it make sense? Now there are actually other CSS preprocessors like Less or Stylus, but Sass is the most popular one, which is why I chose it for this course. So what are these features that Sass actually gives us? Let's get a quick overview before we actually start writing Sass, so that we know what we're looking at here. First, Sass gives us variables, which, just like in normal programming languages, allow us to have reusable values such as colors, font sizes, spacing, etc. Next, we have nesting, in order to nest selectors inside of one another, allowing us to write less code. Next up, there are operators for mathematical operations right inside of CSS. Then, partials and imports, which are one of the most important and most useful features of Sass, allowing us to write CSS in different files and then importing them all into one single file. Next, there are mixins, to write reusable pieces of CSS code, and also functions, which are quite similar to mixins, with the difference that they produce a value that can be used later. Next up, we have extends, which can be used to make different selectors inherit declarations that are common to all of them. And finally, control directives allow developers to write complex code using conditionals and loops like in a real programming language. However, we do not cover this topic in this course because it's usually not needed in a real-world project. It's more for writing CSS frameworks or something. So this was just a very high-level overview of Sass, and in the next 2 lectures, we're actually going to start using this, and everything will make a ton of sense to you. And now, one other thing before we start writing Sass, maybe you have been Googling Sass before and looked at some Sass code and seen different ways that the code looks. And that's right, there are actually 2 Sass syntaxes, which can be quite confusing, so let's clear that up. So one syntax, which is actually the original one, is just called Sass, like the language, and the other one is called SCSS, which stands for Sassy CSS. The Sass syntax is indentation sensitive and doesn't use any curly braces and semicolons, as you see here on the left side. However, I find this syntax a bit confusing, and I find it also more difficult to learn, and also more difficult to convert original CSS projects to Sass with the syntax. And that's why I prefer the SCSS syntax, which preserves the way that original CSS looks like. And that's why SCSS is what we're going to use in the rest of this course. Now, if for some reason you prefer the Sass syntax, please feel absolutely free to use that one, because everything should still work the exact same way, it will just look different. Alright, and that's it for the basic Sass intro. In the next lecture, we're finally going to dive right into it. So don't wait and hit play on that next video.